Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Hey, I am back. Gonna be back. So, want to go ahead and do a quick follow-up to a game that we certainly talked about plenty on the Aaron Torres pod Sunday night. We, of course, reacted quite a bit to that thriller at Boulder, Colorado. Colorado survives in overtime against Baylor to improve to 3-1, 1-0 in the Big 12. We talked about the game, but what I want to get into now, I want to do a little bit of a follow-up because I do believe that after the game, there was something that Coach Prime said that bluntly, I just believe fell through the cracks. I don't believe enough people are talking about. And if we're being totally transparent, I think something Coach Prime said is something that should set off alarm bells across college football in a positive way if you're a Colorado fan, maybe in an interesting way if you're one of their upcoming opponents. So let's go ahead and dive in. Obviously, by now, we don't need to recap what happened on Saturday night, but it's worth the 30 seconds to just say, that was I don't think it's hyperbole, one of the all-time finishes in the history of college football. They talked about it on air, the Cordell Stewart to Michael Westbrook throw all those years ago. Well, Deion Sanders drops back, 2 seconds left, throws it deep. LaJohntay Wester comes out of nowhere, makes the catch. It was 31-24 at the time, kicks the extra point, forces overtime, and in overtime, Travis Hunter did the unthinkable. Puts that mouth guard in. Baylor running back is running for that goal line. Travis Hunter knocks the ball out of his hands, out of the back of the end zone. It's a touchback, ball game, fans storm the field, whatever. I bring it up again. It was just awesome, but we've already talked about that. I do think it's worth noting, by the way, before we even get into what Coach Prime said, I think it's worth noting that Colorado has already gotten good news off of that game. There was some recruiting news from earlier in the day here on Monday. Colorado, they had some high-profile recruits on campus. They got their first flip because of the atmosphere and the excitement of that game. Antonio Branch, 4-star defensive back, was committed to Penn State. He has flipped. He is now going to be a Buffalo. And oh, by the way, there are reports as well that Byron Baldwin Jr., a 4-star defensive back committed to Indiana, top 250 player in the country. He was also in attendance. He's from Baltimore. And the early reports are he's about ready to be a Buff. To quote Coach Prime says, we coming? Well, apparently they coming too because the impact of that recruitment is a big deal coming out of Saturday. Really, though, what I want to do now is just spend a minute reacting to something that Coach Prime said after the game because I think to me it is really important. I have said, really since the offseason, I said, I think this team is going to be much better than it was a year ago. I got made fun of. I got mocked. Oh, Torres, they're going to go 4-8 again. They stink. Wasn't perfect against North Dakota State, but they get the win. The Nebraska game did not go well, but I think if you've watched the last two games, you can see that this team and this program is improving, and I believe they have another level to go. Well, you know who agrees with me? Coach Prime, because after the game, I think this quote got a little bit lost in the excitement and the hysteria of the end of the game on Saturday. But Coach Prime, after the game, was asked by reporters the ceiling of this Colorado program. He said, quote, I think we're so much better than what we're showing you at times. We keep showing you glimpses of a run game. We show you we can throw the ball all around, and then we just stall for a series or two or surrender something foolishly. But I'm pleased and I'm thankful. I'm thankful. And so when I hear Coach Prime say that, again, the quote, if you missed it, we are so much better than we're showing you at times. It confirms what I believed in the preseason. It confirms what my own eyes have seen. And I am here to tell you, I know there's a lot of people that are going to sit there and say, Torres, you're full of it. You're kissing Coach Prime's butt. But I really believe this team is just starting to scratch the surface of their potential. And I think when you look at this team and you look at the trajectory of some of the teams on this schedule, I think Colorado can be a lot better than people are giving them credit for. So first off, let's because I know what the first reaction is going to be. Torres, if Baylor just knocked down that ball, if Colorado did not complete that pass, you wouldn't even be having this conversation. Okay. First of all, Colorado did complete that pass, so that's part of it. It is history. It did happen. It doesn't matter how it happened. It just happened. But two, I think even in that game, if you watch that game, this is no disrespect to Baylor, but Colorado was the better team. Now, that's not an excuse for needing a miracle to win the game. And I think that's what Coach Prime is talking about. We're so much better than we've showed. But if you watch the game, it's not even a debate, in my opinion, who the better team was. First off, Colorado gave a punt return for a touchdown up early in the second quarter, I believe it was, late first, early second. And so first off, if you just make a tackle and they had the returner wrapped up, if you just bring the guy to the ground, all of a sudden it's a 24-24 game. You don't need a miracle heave at the end of the game. And if you get the miracle heave at the end of the game, you don't need overtime. One play, it's tied. You don't need overtime, or you don't need the miracle at the end. But beyond that, if you're just watching the game, it is so clear and so obvious that this team is better, that this team is improved from a year ago. First of all, Coach Prime talked about it, the run game. Listen, it's not perfect. But by the way, when you have the best quarterback in college football and the best wide receiver in college football, and I'm sorry, but those two guys are, Shador's the most talented quarterback in college football, okay? This is no disrespect. But I see Carson Beck, people talking about him as the number one overall pick. Listen, I don't know who's going to go number one, who's going to go number three, who's going to go number five. Shador is so much more talented than that guy. Shador is more talented than Quinn Ewers. Shador is more talented than whoever. Now, I think there's some young guys that could get there. I think Nico from Tennessee is phenomenal. But I just bring it up because Shador right now is, in my opinion, the most talented quarterback in college football. Travis Hunter, by the way, is the best wide receiver in college football. Don't know if he will be by the end of the year. Don't know if he'll be worn down. I don't think he will be because he hasn't been worn down in 2 years. But right now, he is the best receiver in college football. As I said on Sunday's show, I believe he is the Heisman Trophy frontrunner right now. But beyond that, and I think that brings up the point about the run game. As Coach Prime said, we're showing you glimpses of a run game. That's the important part. You don't have to run the ball like the Pittsburgh Steelers, okay? You don't have to run the ball like Christian McCaffrey when he's healthy with the San Francisco 49ers. But they are improved, and they're running it enough to be effective against certain teams, right? 19 carries for 109 yards the other day against Colorado State. That's 6 yards per carry just about. And then, by the way, against Baylor, it wasn't always pretty, but they did move the ball on the ground right around 100 yards in that game. Beyond that, here's the other thing. Like, people are like, oh, if they didn't, they outplayed Baylor. First off, they had over 100 yards more of offense than Baylor. It's worth noting, by the way, Baylor came into the game as the number one pass defense in all of college football. Colorado ended up throwing for 341 yards. And what people are also not paying enough attention to, this defense is getting better, okay? Remember, last year, the defense was abysmal. The defense was abysmal. The O-line was abysmal. The run game was abysmal. You couldn't run. You get whatever. This year, the defense has been quietly really good. They gave up 7 points after halftime against Baylor on Saturday night. That's really good. By the way, they gave up anything against Nebraska. Now, you could argue Nebraska, okay, that was a little bit different. They jumped out to an early lead. They sat on the ball. By the way, Colorado State last weekend did not find the end zone until the fourth quarter. And so it's not even my opinion that the defense has improved. The stats just kind of back it up. Last year, this was a defense that ranked 124th nationally, giving up 34 points per game. This year, 72nd nationally, giving up 23 points per game. So the defense is giving up about 10 points less per game, which is insane to think about. Went from 124th nationally to 72nd nationally. Shador is great. The pass game's great. The run game is good enough. And here's the other thing that we talked about the other day, is that if you look at this schedule, if you look at the Big 12, this is not disrespectful, but all of a sudden, some of those games that look so tough, so impossible a few weeks ago, all of a sudden, I'm not sold that some of these games are absolutely impossible. Here is the Colorado schedule as we speak, and I'll kind of get in and out of it as we go. But you have this week against Central Florida. I'll be honest, that is a tough game. I actually think Central Florida is one of the more underrated teams in college football. They're second in the country in rushing. They have a elite running quarterback in KJ Jefferson. And I'll defend, I'm not going to make it all hunky-dory here on Colorado. But remember, the thing that Colorado struggled with maybe more than anything in that opener against North Dakota State was Cam Miller, the dual threat quarterback that could make plays with his legs and make plays with his arm. So Colorado is an underdog coming into the weekend. Early money is coming in on Colorado. So far doesn't mean that it will, doesn't mean that UCF won't win, doesn't mean that Colorado's making the college football playoff. But at the same time, after that UCF game, look at this schedule, right? Because again, some of these games are deemed to be impossible. Kansas State was ranked in the top 15 in the country. That looked like a game that was maybe going to be a loss, certainly going to be a challenge early in the season. Well, fast forward, it's still going to be a challenge. Both teams will be coming off a bye. Have you seen Kansas State in their road games this year? Should have lost to Tulane second week of the year. Got destroyed on the road on Saturday against BYU. And so Kansas State, listen, they're a really good team. They're really well coached. But let's stop putting them in the Georgia, Texas, Tennessee category, okay? 3 turnovers in the game at BYU. They struggled to move the football. They struggled to pass the ball. And so that's a game that, in my opinion, is absolutely winnable for Colorado. Arizona, by the way, a week after that. Listen, there is no one that was a bigger proponent of Arizona football over the last year than I was. Thought it was phenomenal what this program became a year ago under Jedd Fisch. Criticized Jedd Fisch, by the way, for leaving because I thought he had a team that was good enough to win the Big 12. But what can't be denied is that at least early, and we'll see 3 weeks from now, it could be a different deal. Arizona's kind of really inconsistent under the new coach, Brent Brennan. You look at that team, 50-plus points in week 1 against New Mexico, gave up close to 40. Then week 2, they can't move the ball. They beat a bad Northern Arizona team 22-10. Then week 3, they get punked by the same Kansas State team that just got punked by BYU. So all of a sudden, Arizona was a preseason top 25 team. They looked unbeatable. Now they're not. Cincinnati, I'm sorry, not unbeatable. They're 3-1, lost to the best team on their schedule. I think those Final Four will be challenging. Texas Tech on the road. Texas Tech, I'll tell you, Lubbock, if you're not familiar, that is a strange place to play, a tough place to play. So Texas Tech's going to be tough. Utah, to me, is the class of this league. Just won at Oklahoma State in a game where they did not have Cam Rising, their starting quarterback, went on the road and won in a game with a true freshman at quarterback. So Utah is going to be a challenge. I think at Texas Tech is going to be a challenge. But again, go to the back half of the schedule. Kansas, right before Thanksgiving, looked like this impossible game on the schedule early in the season. Kansas is 1-3. Hate to be disrespectful or crass, but they're kind of a mess right now. And then you close with Oklahoma State at home on Black Friday. And so I just bring it up to very simply say, listen, I'm not trying to oversell this. But when Coach Prime says, we're better than we're showing, I agree. I think, first of all, played their best game of the season 2 weeks ago on the road at Colorado State. Played a very good half of football against Baylor this weekend. And I still think there's another level to go. As he said, if we could put it all together consistently for 4 quarters, we have a chance to be a really, really, really good team. So I don't want to oversell it. Don't want to do anything other than what I've done. But when I look at this team and I look at this schedule, I think there is a chance that this team is much better than people think. I know there's a lot of people think that's going to be a 4-8 deal. They stink. They're no good. They're this, they're that. Listen, I think this can be like a 9-3 team. Not saying they will, but think they can be. But, they got to take care of the games they're supposed to. And as Coach Prime said, they got to show it consistently. Time for me to get out of here. Do appreciate everybody's support. First of all, if you are not subscribed, make sure to do so to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. By the way, for those new to the channel, we do have our Coach Prime merch, our primetime tees. We got a bunch of orders this weekend. Appreciate everybody's support. You want to support the show, link is in the show description or link is down low in the comments as well. Grab yours today. Appreciate everybody. We'll be back talking more Coach Prime here